Proteins cannot be formed in the presence of amino acids. Wow. So here they're thinking, I'm going to form all these amino acids. Well, proteins, which are really, proteins is what makes your body function. Proteins have the instructions to keep your body alive, sending food, digesting your food, sending the food products to your body, to your cells. Okay, proteins can't be formed in the presence of amino acids. So even if this primordial soup produced the amino acids, proteins can't form in the presence of amino acids. The process cannot form cellular components. There's a cell nucleus to talk about. There's mitochondria. There's endoplasmic reticulum. DNA cannot be produced by these reactions, and you need DNA. DNA can't be produced using this process. The clincher is no Nobel Prize was ever awarded. That's right. So it's like, if this had really been an earth-shattering experiment, this abiogenesis experiment to show that, yeah, the idea in Darwinian evolution of the primordial ooze could have produced life in a living cell through time and enough random chance processes, why was a Nobel Prize never awarded? It's because every time this experiment was repeated anywhere in the world, they got exactly the same results. 98% of the stuff was non-essential for life. Amino acids in very low quantities, only 9 out of 20 get formed. That's it. So, more life can be found in a bowl of chicken soup. Really, more amino acids and proteins can be found in a bowl of chicken soup. So life in a test tube. Well, regarding the product of the Miller-Urey experiment, here's what the evolutionist Robert Shapiro stated. Here's an evolutionist telling us about this. Let's sum it up. This experiment performed by Miller yielded tar as its most abundant product. There are about 50 small organic compounds that are called building blocks. Only 2 of these 50 occurred among the preferential Urey-Miller products. So, past 40 years, many scientists have repeated this experiment. Actually, it's been 50 years now, because that experiment was performed in 1953. They've used electrical sparks, heat, ultraviolet radiation, light, shock waves. They try to, make it a little different each time, and to create these building blocks. But every time these amino acids have been made, they occur in the same proportion, with glycine and alanine predominating, just as in Miller's experiment. By the way, how many of you know Dr. John Branch?
Here in town?
Yes,
Yeah,
here in town.
yeah.
Well, when he was a grad student at University of San Diego, he had a discussion with some evolutionist friends about this experiment, what it meant.
Yes.
And I forget if it was Urey or Miller was actually a professor emeritus at the medical school there. And they said, well, let's go ask him about this experiment he did. And he said, forget about that experiment. It meant nothing. So don't let anyone tell you, hey, the Urey-Miller experiment proved that you could have primordial soup and it produced living things, living cells. No, it didn't produce that at all.
Got a lot of press.
It did. So what I'm going to show now, what time is it, by the way? Okay, when do we have to quit?
8 o'clock.
Okay. All right, well, I'll show this little video. Hopefully it'll work practice it.
In the years since Kenyon's rejection of chemical evolution, science has revealed the details of an entire system of information
I
processing
don't even want to dim the
that
lights
bears
a
the
little.
hallmarks of intelligent design. With computer animation, we can enter the cell to view this remarkable system at work. After entering the heart of the cell, we see the tightly wound strands of DNA, storehouses for the instructions necessary to build every protein in an
This is what the Urey-Miller experiment should have produced, if it were to prove anything.
In a process known as transcription, a molecular machine first unwinds a section of the DNA helix to expose the genetic instructions needed to assemble a specific protein molecule. instructions to form a molecule known as messenger RNA. When transcription is complete, the slender RNA strand carries the genetic information through the nuclear pore complex, the gatekeeper for traffic in and out of the cell nucleus. The messenger RNA strand is directed to a two-part molecular factory called a ribosome. After attaching itself securely, the process of translation begins.
So these are the amino acid strands on this RNA, and
Inside the ribosome,
it's
a
leaking out,
molecular
correlating
cell
with
line
proteins.
builds a specifically sequenced chain of amino acids. These amino acids are transported from other parts of the cell and then linked into chains often hundreds of units long. Their sequential arrangement determines the type of protein manufactured.
And turning into space.
So the top was the RNA and the bottom was a protein chain.
When the chain is finished, it is moved from the ribosome to a barrel-shaped machine that helps fold it into the precise shape critical to its function.
That's the protein molecule.
After the chain is folded into a protein, it is then released and shepherded by another molecular machine to the exact location where it is needed.
This is absolutely mind-boggling to perceive at this scale of size such a finely tuned apparatus, a device that bears the marks of intelligent design and manufacture. And we have
He's not a Christian yet.
details of an immensely complex molecular realm
But he doesn't
of
believe in
genetic
evolution.
information processing, and it's exactly this new realm of molecular genetics where we see the most compelling evidence of design on the Earth.
Yeah, I heard someone say he wrote the book on chemical evolution, which he disavows now, and yet that textbook is still used.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Dean Canyon.
So, Psalms 139, what we just saw. I will praise you, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. Modern science has shown us the complexity of a cell. These processes go off in our bodies all the time, making these proteins. So, summarizing abiogenesis. Darwinism requires spontaneous generation to kickstart the process of evolution. That doesn't occur. Spontaneous generation, abiogenesis, has been disproven by scientists such as Francesco Redi, Louis Pasteur, Stanley Miller, and Harold Urey. So where does that leave Darwinian evolution? Well, if spontaneous generation cannot occur, then Darwinian evolution is a fallacy. It's a showstopper. Biogenesis is a showstopper for Darwinian evolution. But wait, there's more. And we don't have, I know we're not going to have complete time, but biological design also invalidates Darwinian evolution. This quote, I'm going to go through it fairly rapidly, but most of you know and have heard of Michael Denton. I don't know if he's a Christian yet or not, but I know that several of the staff at Institute for Creation Research have struck up a friendship with him and his wife, and been talking to him about the creation aspect of the things that we see. But he wrote this book, Evolution, a Theory in Crisis, and he's a secular scientist, but he realizes that there's a major problem with Darwinian evolution. There's something fundamentally wrong with it. It cannot get you from point A to point B in its current form. And he's looking at it from the microbiologist standpoint, the animated film that we just saw. about how a cell produces protein, he recognizes that could not have come about by random processes. So it mitigates, as he says, against the idea of chance. So here's what Richard Dawkins, how many of you heard of Richard Dawkins? Yeah, Dawkins, excuse me, says, biology is a study of complicated things that give the appearance of having been designed for a purpose. Yeah. Well, Philip Johnson replies to that in his book, Darwin on Trial. If you're going to teach the Darwinistic view that organisms may look like they were designed, but they weren't, then you have to allow for the possibility that they look like they were designed because they were designed.
Right.
But Dawkins doesn't want to look at it that way. So, butterfly evolution. This is the classic example that I like to share with people who feel inadequate or ill-equipped to share why they believe in creation versus evolution. Because a lot of times people that believe in evolution, they seem to have all the highfalutin words, and they seem to come from a background where they've read a lot of books and things, and it's kind of intimidating. But to just give them the example of the butterfly. You know, remember one of the things that Darwin said? That if it can be shown that there exists in nature an organism that could not have been produced by numerous, random, successive, single point, natural selected mutations, and an organism produced through that, then it would annihilate his theory, basically. Well, a butterfly is a perfect example of that, okay? So, instead of talking about this, this process, a little video that we have time to show, but this is what a person by the name of R. Milton says in Shattering the Myths of Darwinism. No stage or aspect of this physical process can be accounted for or even guessed at, the process of metamorphosis, with our current knowledge of chemistry, physics, genetics, or molecular biology, extensive though they are. It is completely beyond us. Now this was written in 1992, but I don't think much has changed. We know practically nothing about the plan or program governing the metamorphosis or the organizing agency that executes this plan. How do you go literally inside that cocoon? Literally biological mush. Biological mush. I would not do this, and I wouldn't tell you to do it, but if you would just squash a cocoon, that's all you'd see in there, or cut it open, biological mush. Yet in a few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, you go from biological mush to a fully formed creature, a butterfly, with wings, 2 antennae, compound eyes, 3-segmented body, 6 legs, and it can reproduce. The larval stage doesn't reproduce, the butterfly reproduces. This is again an example of which came first, the chicken or the egg? Or the chickens, I guess, because you need a male and a female. So anyway, this is the closest thing to Darwinian evolution, actually. That's the irony of the butterfly metamorphosis. This is the closest thing to what evolution would need, okay? But it's obviously not evolution. It's already pre-programmed in design. So let's take a look at another little video about this.
The insect begins as an egg.